Hey everyone, and welcome to Skill-Capped. I'm the King Live, and if you clicked on this video, it's probably because you're looking to hit Diamond in Valorant. Maybe you've been trying to go from Platinum to Diamond for a while and just can't seem to make it happen, or maybe you're a lower ranked player who believes that they have what it takes to eventually hit Diamond. If either of those things applies to you, this is probably the guide for you. Even if you're a Diamond player who maybe just wants to brush up on their skills, it's my job right now to share some knowledge with you. But here's the thing. I don't want to tell you things that you've already heard in every single guide. You've all been told to improve your crosshair placement to climb. You get it. Have good aim, do aim trainers. Those are things that are always a work in progress. You'll work on them as you climb, but what are the actual things that are keeping you from being Diamond? That's what I want to share with you today. So with all that said, let's get started with the first thing that you should be doing to meet your goal of hitting Diamond this season. But before we do, let me introduce the question of the day, which is, who do you think is the strongest agent to carry in solo queue? I'm interested to hear what you have to say, so be sure to let us know in the comments below, and I'll be responding to some of you guys myself as well. Anyway though, the first thing that you need to do to reach Diamond is take initiative. This is one of the most important things that will separate lower tier players from the higher tier players. Even as you climb through Diamond, you'll notice teams are a little dysfunctional. Oftentimes, players have no idea what the next move is, and when you have 5 players who are all afraid to make the first move, your game is inevitably going to end up in a loss. We've all watched that streamer before where it seems like no matter what happens, it's always someone else's fault. If they're playing a duelist, it's the controller's fault. If they're playing a controller, it's the duelist's fault. The truth is, though, it doesn't really matter whose fault it is. What matters is that you're going to lose if somebody doesn't step up. This means sometimes you're going to have to be the one to engage when you're playing Brimstone. And just to validate you in this situation, you're right. It's probably not optimal to be the one engaging as Brimstone. It would be a lot better if your Phoenix or your Jett would do it. But in those games where it feels like an uphill battle and nobody is doing their job, I want to share with you this one bit of advice. You can either lose one way or you can lose another. You can lose from your entire team sitting in A main afraid to engage, or you can lose because you at least tried to make something happen and it just didn't work out this time. Because the problem here is that somebody has to do it, and maybe you're not the best man for the job, but see it this way. It's one of those games where if you don't take initiative, this is a 100% chance that you will lose. And if you do, there's only a 50% chance. I don't know about you, but I will always prefer to take that 50% chance. And if we don't win, it's all cool. As the kids say, unlucky, GG, go next. But before we go on to the next tip, if you guys are serious about improving, I recommend checking out all things that we have to offer on skillcapped.com. We have up-to-date lineups for agents, courses on all the mechanics needed to win more gunfights, Smurf commentaries where a higher ranked player will walk you through to how to carry in your rank, and so much more. Come join over 500,000 satisfied members on Skill-Capped, improve that KDA, and get that rank that you've always wanted at skillcapped.com. Link in the description below. Moving on to our second tip though, and that is communicate for your teammates. Now, for clarification, I'm not saying communicate with your teammates, I'm saying communicate for your teammates. In all honesty, this is a really hard tactic to perform entirely effectively, but it's going to increase your team's awareness by an incredible amount when done correctly. The thing is, in an ideal world, you wouldn't have to do this, but the reality is Valorant competitive queue is far from an ideal world. A majority of your teammates are not going to communicate most things that they see. Maybe it's because they're in a gunfight and trying to focus. Maybe it's because their mom is in the room on the phone and they don't want to talk over her. It doesn't really matter what the reason is. When there is information that is not being called out, some players are going to be left in the dark. You need to be the one to pick up the slack for your team. If your Sova spots somebody on A long, you should call that. Now, you can even take this one step further, and if your teammate gives up a position or you notice that the position is not covered, call that out as well. The biggest thing I want to say though when making callouts is going to be delegation. Oftentimes in your games, you'll hear people make callouts like you're both watching the same spot. What they really mean is that one of the players who is watching Garage, for example, should turn and watch CT or long. The problem here is that since nobody clearly delegated who should turn, either both players will turn their attention towards CT, or neither player will turn their attention, assuming the other player will do it. Similarly, if I make a call out like, can somebody please pick up Garage, that is much less likely to be met than if I say, Jett, can you pick up Garage? Delegation is something that a lot of managers are experienced with, and I encourage you to try to think of yourself as a manager for your team at times, especially when you're dead. Try to be careful to avoid backseat gaming though when you're dead, as there's definitely a thin line between providing helpful information and requests and telling your teammates what to do. Do provide information it feels like your team is missing or could be a potential threat. Don't tell your teammates what to do with that information, especially when they're in a 1v1. As mentioned earlier, there's a really fine line between backseating and providing helpful information. If it seems like your team is not being receptive to the things that you're saying, it might be time to dial it back a bit. Also, keep in mind that a lot of this actually depends on how much your teammates are already communicating. If you have 5 teammates who are constantly saying things, you'll probably have to talk less. But if you are the only one communicating, you might have to pick up your teammates' slack and communicate what they are seeing as well as what you are seeing. This brings us to our third tip though, which is be quick with your decisions. We don't play with half commitments in this house. If you're going to do something, you should do it with authority. This problem is most apparent in lower ranked players when they're in clutch situations. You see, whenever you're in a clutch situation, you should always have some sort of plan of what you're going to do. You need to keep in mind here that plans are developed by assessing your options. Your goal when you're playing should be to quickly think about your options and which one provides you the highest opportunity for success. The best players are capable of doing this on the fly, and what I would really encourage you to do is watch some professional players play on their stream and observe how they play clutch situations throughout the rounds. Do they look calm and collected when they play, or do they look nervous and uncomfortable? I'm going to assume they probably look pretty calm and collected. A really prime example of when having quick decision making is important is on a map like Bind. The teleporters on Bind are a tool that are intended to be used throughout the rounds, but so many players don't even consider that they are there. The best players will know that when they are attempting to push A or B, if things start to go wrong, they will quickly make the decision to take the teleporter and rotate to the other site. Lower ranked players tend to hesitate too much on these decisions, and it results in them playing with a lot less confidence and making more mistakes. When watching these pro players play, try to mimic their playstyle to an extent. Pros can sometimes get away with making more aggressive plays because of their aim, but more so try to watch them for their decision-making skills. It's very rare to catch a professional player standing in the open looking confused. Watch how they rotate, watch how they position. Try to latch onto a bit of their confidence and use it in your own play. Moving on to our fourth tip though, which is accepting your losses for what they are. Listen, losing is part of the game. It's just going to happen. Everybody loses games. For players that only get to play once or twice a week, I empathize with you, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to climb because of that. But for players who play this game every single day, you need to understand that none of these matches actually matter in the long run. What really matters is that you are improving, or more importantly, that you're just enjoying the game in general. This isn't meant to be some cheesy line to tell you to enjoy the game and you'll get diamond. What I'm telling you here is that if you let every single loss put you on tilt, there's just no way that you're going to be able to keep a straight enough mental to be able to climb for those long play sessions. Try to remember that if you believe that you can climb to a higher rank than you are currently at, then that means that you are likely the best player in the lobby. So if you're the best player, and for the sake of this example, say a gold lobby, stop getting upset with gold players for playing like gold players. Sometimes you're going to lose a game, sometimes a teammate's going to leave, and sometimes people are going to rage at each other. You just need to accept that these things happen, learn what you can from those games, and then move on to the next one with a clear mental. I'm no different than any of you. Trust me, I hate losing, but something I hate more than losing is being angry. Don't get angry, chalk your game up as a loss, and move on to the next one. What I always say is your teammates in that game are going to go on to their next game and continue to rage, blame others, and be hard stuck. But you're going to move on, improve, and continue to climb. This tip alone is something that could easily carry you to Immortal if used correctly. That takes us to our fifth tip though, which is you need to create pressure for your team. Now, if you haven't caught on to the theme here, these are all things that your team will not do, so that is why it's important that you pick up their slack. As you climb, you will realize oftentimes your team just won't create any pressure on the map. That is why you need to be the one to create that pressure, otherwise your team will be too easy to read and it won't leave you with any other options in the round other than full push a site. It's just like when we were talking about taking initiative. Although it might be better for one of the other agents on your team to be creating the pressure, maybe somebody like Cypher at Sky, if no one else is doing it, you need to be the one to do it. Even if it's just using some of your utility to deny information or safely take territory, if your team is struggling to 5-man push a site, someone is going to have to step up and push an advantage somewhere else. A good way to do this is by dropping default smokes on strong sight lines to control. For example, on Haven, 3 strong positions you can control are C long, B mid, and A long. It's not always best to use a Brimstone smoke to take a location like A long because it lasts for a very long time and it lets the defense push up and take territory of their own a lot easier. This is why a Cypher Cage is a lot better for taking control right here. Cypher Cages are a lot less important when your team decides to execute onto a site, so using a Cypher Cage here is a lot better because of that. However, if you don't have a Cypher, or your Cypher is just not using his utility here, it might be a better idea for you to fill the gap if you're playing a character like Phoenix, Jett, or even a Flash character who is capable of forcing players off of this angle. The thing I want to emphasize here though is that somebody should be doing this. And if no one on your team is doing it, you're probably going to have to be the one to step up and do it. This is just one example of a location that is important to control though. Another example would be A or B main on Ascent. Both of these locations are very easy to control for attackers and offer ultimate orbs for your team. Oftentimes, in competitive, the defense will give the offense these orbs with very little attempt to contest them. This is why it's important for you to take advantage of this as an attacker and put pressure to control these locations almost every round. If you do not attempt to occupy A main or B main, oftentimes what you'll see is the defenders will push up and get the information that you are not contesting that area. This makes it a lot easier for them to determine where your team is because they know that you are not executing out of that site. You can easily avoid this as an attacker by simply using a flash or a drone at the start of the round to force the defenders back and make it easier for your team to occupy both of these locations. Another thing this will likely do is it'll get the defenders to use some of their utility in response to this pressure. Whether they're dropping smoke or using mollies to block the pushes, you're pulling utility that you now won't need to worry about when you actually decide to push. Moving on though, our sixth tip on how to climb to diamond quickly is to play post plants more safely. It's really easy to get overexcited and immediately rush the defender's spawn after getting a few kills, but if you want to win more games, you should be the one to play back and make sure the bomb goes off for your team to secure the round. This is something that characters like Sova, Breach, and Brimstone are really good at doing because their utility is incredibly strong for getting players off the bomb if it comes down to a situation where they have to play time. It's not always the most exciting job to play patiently like this, but even in Radiant, there are rounds that are lost because players just don't play time. We've all had the situation where the enemy Brimstone is just line up Larry chilling in the middle of nowhere ready to shoot a Molotov on the bomb. Losing to a Brimstone from halfway across the map who's playing time oftentimes makes me feel like there's nothing I can do. You should be that person that makes the enemy team feel like there is nothing they can do. Play time, don't overpeak, and secure the round for your team. This doesn't mean that you have to learn every lineup in the book, but just try to make it as obnoxious as possible for the enemies to defuse the bomb, and you'll for sure win more rounds. Even if you're able to just secure 2 or 3 rounds by doing this, that's easily enough to sway the entire economy of the game and keep the momentum on your side. And our final tip for how to climb to diamond fast is asking your teammates for help. You guys know how it is. Everyone loves to complain about their teammates, but nobody actually likes to communicate with their teammates so that they can have a better chance of winning. Now, it's very frustrating having to constantly ask your controllers to smoke or your duelists to engage, but even doing things such as setting up baits or asking your teammates to peek off your contact seems to be too much for most players, which is why you should do it. Because if it's too much for most players to do, that means that when you do it, it's going to catch the enemy team really off guard. Like we said, if you're the best player on your team, help your teammates out by asking them to do things you'd like them to do. They won't always listen to you, which is okay, but when they do listen to you, you can pull off some really awesome plays. Something I would note is that when asking your teammates for help, try to keep it as simple and clear what you want them to do as possible. If you start asking them to jump through hoops or teach them lineups or do anything too complicated, you're going to overwhelm them and it likely won't work out exactly as you want. But most players are pretty capable of understanding, hey, stand in that corner, I'm going to bait for you. Or if you want to take control of showers one round, just ask your teammate to come and help you, and then you can decide to fall back or do whatever after you've taken control and grabbed the ultimate orb. Remember, this is a team game. You are not alone. The biggest problem I see with lower ranked players is that it always feels like each individual player is playing their own game. By just coordinating little plays with each other or your teammates throughout the games, you can bring your game to the next level and for sure be able to climb to diamond. Lastly, remember, if you want to improve, win more gunfights, and get the rank that you've always wanted, you should check out skillcap.com. Link in the description below. Like I said before, I tried my best to go through this guide and tell you things that you are capable of fixing today. These are all tips and techniques that are going to take practice and you'll be able to improve on them over time, but they're also all just verbal and mental things that you are easily capable of improving on in your very next game. I really didn't want to include anything physical because it feels like those tips can be an uphill battle sometimes. I could tell you to go in and try to 1v4 every round, and honestly that's sometimes what it's going to feel like you have to do, but I've done a number of VOD reviews for lower tier players, and these always seem to be the things that most players struggle with. So if this video was helpful, be sure to drop a like down below to show your appreciation, and don't forget to respond to our question of the day, which is, who do you think is the best agent for solo queue in Valorant? I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. That's all for us today, though. Thanks again, guys. My name is The King Live, and we here at Skill Capped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.